investment opportunity because it's investing with other people's money and it's making choices that they might not themselves want to make with those dollars.
I want to start by talking about other people's money because last time I checked, that's all we spend is the American people's money. That's actually the function of Congress. And there are no dollars that we spend that do not come from the American people. So the argument that we shouldn't do something because it's spending other people's money would simply suggest that we don't spend any money at all, including zeroing out the defense budget. Is that in fact what you were suggesting, Dr. Burke, that we zero out the defense budget so that we don't spend other people's money?
No, but it is the case
that I'm reclaiming my time.
You are spending other people's money.
Always.
And that those choices need to reflect what most Americans want.
Okay.
Most Americans do not
Reclaiming
want
my time, Mr. Chair.
government-funded universal child care.
Reclaiming my time. This is not a hearing about federally mandated Head Start. I don't know what you're talking about. This is actually not what this hearing is about. This is a hearing about the economic and individual investments and returns and benefits, both to the future generation of American children, as well as to our ongoing current economy. So I have an investment opportunity for everyone in the hearing room today. For every dollar that you invest, you will get back at least $4. Anyone want to invest?
I'll take it.
It's pretty good. You won't lose your money. You'll always get back more than you put in. And unlike some of these investment schemes, mine is legal. Anyone in? This is just math. 4 is more than 1. More money is better than less money. Economists agree. Republicans, Democrats agree. This investment is not a hard decision. People would snap this up in the real world. Invest $1, get 4 back, no risk. Ms. Boteic, would you believe me if I told you that Congress had that same investment opportunity for our country and turned it down every year?
Sadly, yes.
Why would you believe that?
Because we know that the science is there, that when we support children and families, especially starting at birth, that it yields long-term and outsized benefits for families and for our economy. And yet, here we are over 50 years after Nixon vetoed universal child care, still with families struggling to find and afford care and providers making poverty wages.
And I think you gave earlier, what is the total new estimate of how much this would generate for our, if we had affordable child care, full access to child care, what would this generate for our economy?
So for a family?
For the whole economy.
For the whole economy. Okay, so we're losing right now $122 billion.
$122 billion that we could have in our economy, and yet what we hear around here all the time is that we don't have money to do things. So Congress has had years to invest in universal child care. Every dollar we put in would have generated, estimates show, about $4 for our economy, yet we still don't have it. Why? Ms. Boteic, why don't we have this?
Well, we need to build the political and public will. The voters are there.
Okay, so let's do the problem must be then the will of the people here, because voters support this. So let's talk about who's here. How would you describe the gender balance and average age of Congress?
It skews older, male, and whiter.
That's correct. So only about 28% of members of Congress are women. The median age in the Senate is 65, and the median age in the House is 58. So lots, on average, lots of older people, lots of older men, lots of men. Is this the type of group who personally needs early childhood education?
Generally not.
Generally not. So early childhood education won't benefit many members, the average member of Congress. Most members' kids are grown, so they don't have to care about where their kids are going. And even when their kids were young, most members leaned heavily on their wives, and I say wives because most members are men, heterosexual men, to juggle their kids' schedule. And frankly, there's a lot of rich people in Congress who didn't have to worry about how to afford childcare or how to navigate the system because they were wealthy. Too many in Congress don't get it because they never had to live it. So this leads to the familiar policy pattern. The older men collectively, that's our Congress, not to take away from any individual champions, including Representative Beyer and Senator Heinrich, but the collective body of older, richer men in Congress overinvest in things they understand, like the Pentagon, and they underinvest in things like early childhood education that don't personally benefit them, maybe don't even make sense to them, and maybe do not reflect how they lived their lives, even if they are big problems for the majority of Americans. So, Ms. Boteic, when institutions like Congress perpetuate longstanding social disparities for women like this, is there a term for that?
I think it's called patriarchy.
Patriarchy is correct. I would also call it structural sexism. When we say smash the patriarchy, when we say that structural sexism continues to permeate this body and this policy, our policies, that's what we're talking about. We're not imagining it. It's not about interpersonal slights. It is about what this body chooses to get done and to fund and to focus on, and what always ends up on the cutting room floor in legislation. Structural sexism is an age-old story. It's not going to go away by itself. It's going to go away because we make it go away. When we stop undervaluing the work of Black and brown women, or the majority of childcare workers, when we start recognizing that women can and must contribute to our economy if we're going to have a globally competitive economy. So, Ms. Boteic, to fix this problem, Congress has to abandon these sexist, outdated ideas and start thinking more about investments. How much would Congress need to invest to establish universal early childhood education?
We've been advocating for $700 billion over 10 years to invest in high quality early care and education, which could easily be supported by taxing wealthy individuals and corporations.
So you're advocating for $700 billion over 10 years? President Biden, I remember everyone proposed $400 billion for preschool and childcare, and yet that would have multiplied by 4, generated trillions of dollars for our economy. So all of our witnesses, everybody said that we'd take this bet, we'd quadruple our money if we could. So investing in early childhood education shouldn't be a hard call, even given the profile of Congress. We should all want to make investments that pay back. So if my colleagues are not moved by the clear economic benefit of investing in early childhood education, maybe they'll be moved simply by this single mom asking them to care on behalf of all the other parents of young children who are struggling in this country. I implore Congress to invest in childcare workers, and early childhood education.
I want to just sort of start, do you think it's an accurate characterization to say that those with professional degrees are much, much more biased towards those family care models that depend on 2 earners at home and outsourcing childcare, whereas working class Americans have a much stronger preference for at least part of the time one of the parents or some other relative being able to care for the child at home? Is that an accurate characterization of public
I
opinion?
think that's generally the case.
So, just picking up on something Congresswoman Porter said earlier, there certainly obviously are all manner of ways in which Congress is not reflective of the American people as a whole. But of course, one of the ways in which Congress is not reflective of the American people as a whole is that we have a much different education and income skew than the country at large. And I guess one thing I'm sort of wondering is, has anybody talked about, just take the Head Start program, okay? We're obviously spend close to $1 trillion in this country on early childhood care. We have a lot of my colleagues, especially on my side of the aisle, tend to support what's called school choice, where you give families different options. And I wonder if there have been any significant proposals in your mind, any credible proposals in your mind, that would actually extend the choice model a little bit more broadly. And so, say for example, you're a professionally educated or working class person, and you would like to have every adult in the household working outside the home, and you would like to have childcare paid for by people outside the home. That's one model. But another model is, and in fact, I think the preference of most Americans actually fits in with this model, is if you're a mom or a dad, maybe you spend a few years at least working part-time, so you spend more time at home with the kids, and then you re-enter the market workforce at some point later. And obviously that was more true of women 50 years ago. It's increasingly true of men and women today. But I'm sort of curious, have you thought of any school choice-like proposals that would not foist the professional class preference on everybody, but would actually give people some choices for how they care for their children during those formative years?
Well, thank you for those questions. And if I could just, for the record, say I would not take Congresswoman Porter's investment opportunity, because it's investing with other people's money, and it's making choices that they might not themselves want to make with those dollars. So
There are lots of ways that we could deliver this. Like Representative Byer, I have had lots of different kinds of arrangements. Universal, to quote what Mosbotaic said, doesn't mean the same. Universal means that the funding, the outcome, the choice is there and available. If we had universal health care in this country, and we don't, some people might choose to go get a colonoscopy every year, and a lot of people won't. It's the same thing with childcare. I personally have had my children in big corporate care. I have had them hourly in-home, part-time. I have had full-time live-in. I have been in a family-owned small business, and I have had in-home family-based care. All of it. And you know what it all was? Really helpful. Particularly as a single mother, because there is no other person. Senator Vance's hypothetical says that one parent might prefer to stay home. That's probably true. There's a lot of statistics that show that parents, men and women, have different preferences at different points in time. But what about the 10 million single moms? Where do they fit? Dr. Burke, where did you put your children in childcare?
well, I'm not going to bring my children into this hearing, so it doesn't have any bearing on this. So
Dr.
it
Burke,
doesn't
do you have
matter.
children?
I do.
So I'm sharing my story because my story is one that doesn't get heard in this Congress. Because you know how many single moms there are?
One or two?
One. Childcare, custodial care to help people who may choose all kinds of different options. I've had full-time care. I've had 3/4 care. I had when I had a spouse, he stayed home some years. That was how we fit the pieces together. But that's what this hearing is about, not jamming one size fits all. But if there isn't the money, there won't be the choice. That's why we see married parents saying they would prefer to stay home because they have the option to stay home. Single parents don't say they'd rather stay home because they couldn't. So our whole perspective here is warped by the fact that this body is so disproportionately unrepresentative of the American people's experience. It is absolutely Congress's job to spend the American people's money. And if we can't spend it to help the next generation of American workers, I don't know what the hell we're doing here. I yield back.
Can I respond quickly to that?
No, she actually cannot.
No, thank you, Dr. Burke.
right.
We appreciate it. But